Hello friends and welcome. Today we're going to talk about the most common mistake I see from people playing invis heroes. It leads to unnecessary deaths in all the brackets. I see this in my games, and then of course it's like a core player who then flames us. It is like, it was you, my guy. So I'm going to tell you guys how to avoid that, or on the flip side, if you're playing versus these invis heroes, then you're going to want to know how to capitalize on this to get yourself some free kills. So let's start with the biggest mistake before you guys lose interest in the video and leave. Then we'll do a little bit more explanation later for those of you that want to stick around. So, invis hero here, Nyx assassin. This applies to any invis hero, but especially those that can get solo pickoffs. This is what baits people in. You're playing like the Clinks with the Orchid, the Ricky with the Diffuse, and you're like, oh yeah, it's time to just solo kill people. That's what Nyx is looking for here. Now, the key is to keep an eye on the minimap. We just saw a hero in the mid lane. We see another hero from the Lifestealer, and Nyx is going to make his way into the enemy jungle on this side. Now, currently, although we saw maybe like one or two heroes in the mid lane, we're not too sure where they are. We have, some information on our half of the map, especially right here. We have one ward here. The lanes aren't quite pushed in on the sides. Mid, we have this observer. Ignore the fact that you can see all these in the replay, guys. You don't know that from the in-game perspective where this kind of information is not bugged. But on the minimap, Nyx is gonna go find where they are. There is always risk to this. But when there are 5 heroes up, and there's the whole map, right? They could be anywhere on their half of the map. Some of them may have just respawned. Who knows what's happening in your game? And so there's slightly less risk when you are just walking into one side of the map, but still risk, not the point of this video. Nyx is going to walk in here. He's going to see what he can find, steal a bounty rune. We're starting to see a couple more heroes flash mid, and he essentially clears out this top jungle, right? He looks around, didn't find anyone. So what's he going to do? He's going to keep looking for people, but this is where you have to stop. This is the mistake from invis heroes. You take the risk, the calculated risk. I'm going to go check this part of the jungle. You didn't find anyone. There's 5 heroes in the game. There's no hero here. There's no hero here. There's no hero here. Now, maybe they're in the edge that we did not check. Maybe there's some sitting in the base. But if we have to do a calculated risk and there's still 5 heroes missing on the map, then they're probably in the last section you haven't checked. So when you, as the solo invis hero, are looking for someone to kill, you can't kill one hero when they're standing amongst their friends. You will die in return, and that's not typically worth it. Invis heroes, this also applies to smokes of deceit. When you come check through the top, just stop at this point, unless you are massively ahead, and it literally doesn't matter. It's rare for that to happen. When you walk into this, you are very likely to die, such as this Nyx assassin, because if they have any sentries placed, 5 heroes are potentially here, and guess what? You're gonna die, and this is a completely unnecessary death. And look at that, 1,000 gold going to the enemy team because they're so far behind at this point, and Legion gets a duel. This is completely unnecessary, and now your team is stuck waiting for you for 50 seconds before you're back up, and they can start making plays. Now, maybe if you're ahead enough, they can do it anyways, but really, if you're gonna throw a game, this is where it starts. I'm gonna show you the same sequence of events from the enemy's perspective so you understand why this is so risky. So, they recently went through this area. Prior to the clip I showed you guys, the Radiant actually kind of lost a fight here, and so the Dire has swept through here and placed some new observers, new sentries, because they're looking for this Nyx, they're looking for wards, and so they set this kind of stuff up. So when Nyx comes through invis here, he's not quite in the sentry range yet, but I believe he's going to cut down in just a moment. Get over here, Nyx. There, right there. This is where, from the Dire's perspective, right, they're playing over here, and on the minimap, suddenly, boop, invis Nyx. Now, what you do from here is up to you. You could just know, okay, Nyx is there, we should avoid that area. Or you keep watching what he's doing. Hey, he's kind of walking over this way. Now, because you can see the invis hero from your observer and sentry, the odds that the whole enemy team is smoked behind him are very low, because why wouldn't Nyx also be in the smoke? So when you see just the solo invis hero from your observer sentry combo set up somewhere on the map, then you kind of have a guess, like, that guy's probably on his own. Now, you can also verify this based on what other information you have on the map, based, like, maybe your lanes are shoved in, or you have observer somewhere else, so you see the enemy. So you might still want to be a little careful in case this Nyx does have teammates with him. But once you see Nyx starting to make his way over here, you guys playing against the invis heroes, I bet he can't control himself. I bet he's going to come over here thinking that invis is invincibility, and he's just going to walk in here trying to kill one of us. So I'm going to drop a sentry if I haven't already. But look at that. Sentry's already placed. So you now go position and wait for that Nyx to walk up. And oh, here he is, guys. Get ready. Look, they all came. They all knew this is happening. Boom. Easy kill. Just to really hammer home why this is such a classic mistake that I see all the time. A minute later, the same minute, he respawned from the time he died over here, and he just walks back in without a ton of information. Now, he does see the Legion top, and he kind of saw some things as he was respawning, right? But you gotta remember, if they had sentries to see you the first time, even if no one is here, there might be an observer that will see you. The same way earlier, there was an observer-sentry combo here that let the enemy team know, even if they weren't in the area, Nyx is here. So do we want to prepare for that, or do we want to go somewhere else? Nyx doesn't find anyone here, but he should know there's at least sentries here because they killed him last time, and there could be an observer, which means the enemy would know he is looking for people invis, and so when he continues to look around and cross over, the enemy team is coming for him. They have a sentry, 2 dust, they are so ready. Another kill that Nyx Assassin is going to feed away, another 1,000 gold, which means from the last death I said, oh, they got to wait 50 seconds. Here's another 50 seconds. So when you are majorly ahead, now, this Nyx's choices have given at least 2 minutes and 2,000 gold back to the enemy team to give them a chance to get back into the game. All right, so now for those of you who are going to stick around to really improve your knowledge of invis heroes, I want to go more step by step to really explain the mentality of playing as an invis hero or against an invis hero, which is really just imagining where enemy vision is and properly navigating those areas. It's just like playing like a stealth game, right? You don't know that, oh, the enemy has cameras here, let me just go walk through there, right? If they could have a camera there, you're going to avoid that area to avoid detection. So here's Nyx Assassin. He just hit 6 a little bit ago. He's doing a little bit of farming. His very first ult, he uses it here. At 11 minutes into the game, and actually even throughout the entire game, especially when this mid tower's up, it's very common to have observers in the mid-river, possibly a sentry as well. Yes, there is a sentry and an observer here, but it could have easily missed an enemy observer here. So he is first walking into an area the enemy might have vision. And yes, you can say that about anywhere, but we are increasing the odds that this is a very common area at a common time in the game to have detection. Ulting here, this would have massively boosted his odds that the enemy does not see him go invis, and even if they have an observer here but not a sentry, they wouldn't know he's here. There's a chance they already know he has gone invis based on where he ulted. So that's kind of mistake number 1 if you're an invis hero. Do it from somewhere you don't think they have vision. If you're like Bounty Hunter or Ricky who goes invis all the time, it's not as big of a deal, but for heroes like Nyx who have a very long cooldown on their ultimate, it's very important that you're not spotted. Next, where's the first place he's going to go while Scuttle is active? He's going to go to one of the most common areas to have an observer-sentry combo. Again, even if the enemy team is not here prepared to kill him, right? There wasn't like 5 heroes all waiting for him like we saw earlier in the clip because it's earlier in the game. But if they know where the invis hero is, you're much less likely to succeed in your gank. And in fact, we do see the enemy has an observer here, but not a sentry. So if you're looking for that first pickoff, or you're just looking to gather information and just applying general pressure as an invis hero, because when you're off the map, the enemy should feel scared. It's like, is Nyx in my lane? Is Nyx in my lane? Is Nyx watching me try to sneak Roshan? Right? They don't know because they don't see you. But as soon as you pop up here, and let's say they did have a sentry, Legion knows, she's like, oh, I gotta get out of here. This is kind of dangerous for me. But Lifestealer, who is really worried, is like, oh, I could get stunned out of invis, and then I don't get to use my rage or my ultimate if I get chain stunned. It's like, oh, Nyx is bottom. So there's very low chance of that happening to me. Now I feel very comfortable pushing top. So just staying off the map as an invis hero is very important, which means you want to avoid just running into these very common areas, especially as a Nyx Assassin with the long cooldown, right? If he knows they have detection here and he's like, oh, I want to check this cliff, you don't want to break your ultimate that you just used to now place a sentry to deward this. That's not what you want out of your first ult. Again, those heroes like Bounty Hunter, who can kind of go in and out of invis really easily, Clink support when that was a thing, right? Not too long of a cooldown. You can kind of do this because it's not as big of a deal, but there is still the risk of just walking into the enemy team. So really not a great place to walk as Nyx with your first ultimate. Now this one's kind of fine because his team recently came through here, so they checked some common spots. So Nyx is going to feel more comfortable going invis here, especially as Puck makes a play mid. But you see Nyx is just going to like walk right in. Now, to be fair, if he thinks he can kill this Legion, I get it. It's kind of worth it. Support, core kill, sure. But you also know there's like 3 enemy heroes here. And depending on your bracket, it's not that weird to have sentries in this area. But maybe you're not sure. And if you get caught off every now and then, that could be fine. However, if you do want to kill this Legion because she's at half health, you will probably trade your life when these heroes are here. Or if it's a support and it's not really worth you trading your life, you don't want to just run in like this in case they did have sentries. You want to kind of like watch at the edge and see where the low health hero goes. If they're with the enemy team the whole time, I don't feel great about that pickoff. But at some point, especially in a pub game, people are going to scatter. One guy's like, I want to go farm the Ancients. One guy's like, well, I'm kind of bored. Maybe I'm going to go try to do a deep ward, and they just kind of split up. So you just hang by the edge. So even if they do have a sentry and they see you, if you're over here, it's not as easy to jump you as when you're right next to the melee Legion who's now going to duel you. If Venge sees you like, oh guys, I want to go for the swap, she starts turning towards you, you're like, well, that's really suspicious. I'm going to back up. I'm going to stand behind this tree and get away from them, right? So even though you're in vision, you're playing it safe as if they had vision of you. So many invis heroes, so many people playing it, they're like, I'm invis until I know otherwise. I'm just going to assume they can't see me, but that's really risky. Just assume they see you and keep to the edges, just like you would if you were a visible hero. You wouldn't just blindly walk in here like, let me see if I can kill Legion. They're gonna kill you. Same thing is gonna happen to you sometimes when they do have detection down, but I get it. Again, like sometimes you don't know they're gonna have detection here, but from now on, you should know, okay, this is a team that places sentries down in common areas, which then if we go back, if you think earlier in the clip, in the video, 25 minutes into the game, he walked through here blindly, right? You should establish at this point that they put sentries in this area, so you really shouldn't be taking those risks. So that makes his deaths that we saw earlier even worse now that this earlier death happened. It's like he's never learning his lesson about where the enemies are putting sentries. This one is fine because his team has recently played through here and there's literally a fight going on and sentries are down. However, as this fight is progressing, he should see his observer being de-warded. They now maybe have vision. So this, you see how he's actually hugging the edges in this fight? This is really good, trying to make sure he's like, I'm going to find the right target while invis when they don't expect me to be joining this. This fight doesn't matter that much because his team is kind of stomping it, but the play style is right. If he had had that same play style over here and wasn't tempted by that low health Legion, then he would have lived, he wouldn't have died here, and he maybe even would have gotten vision or information to let him know that they might have sentries here. Like when the Venge suddenly turns towards him, or maybe a creep aggroes to him because he's hugging the edge, right? Then he would live and not have died if he did that same play style that he had here, which is like, let me see where am I needed, kind of hug the edge of where I know I'm safe because I have sentries still alive, but I just saw them remove this, so I'm going to avoid that cliff area. Even when a team fight's not happening, you want to do that. Like say you're ulting through here in the early game and you think they might have vision here, don't run through the cliff, run around the cliff through areas that you don't think are going to be lower odds of having sentries. Like not this cliff area, which is so common in pubs, right? Weave yourself around the cliffs to avoid the common sentry spots. Just to quickly show you a safer way to make it into the triangle, for example, I'm just going to assume there's an observer on this cliff and a sentry setup, which a sentry on the cliff would be pretty common depending on your MMR, or the higher level like sentry here, this is the next most common spot. And I'm just going to avoid that. Ignoring the fact that I literally came from this angle anyway, so this is the most direct path, this was still intentional. Even if we had killed someone here and I was interested in scouting out this triangle, unless I felt really strong about my team and are like, yeah, we're just going in to steal stacks, who cares if they see us, then I would take the direct path. But if my team is like, we'll go if we see someone's like, okay, I'm going to try to be as sneaky as possible, I'm going to come this way, and you see, I get to break the high ground and get vision up here, and I'm out of the most common sentry right now. So I see Lion, he doesn't know I'm here yet until I walk in a little further, but that's where I get to judge how risky I think it is. And because we've killed Bristle, because I have a team relatively nearby, I see Pudge mid, I know Centaur like ran this way, I know I'm relatively safe. I do just end up like walking straight in. But for you guys, especially if you're like playing that pickoff hero, you don't want to just feed, like let's imagine we're that Nyx assassin in the earlier clips. I don't want to just like walk in the most common areas. I even have Scuttle on Nyx, so I'm going to like come through this tree line. Like what are the odds there's a sentry over here, So I'm going to come through this tree line, peek my head out of these trees, just like, anyone here? Look around, right? And if I suddenly see 3 heroes, I'm going to be extra careful because maybe they don't see me, but maybe I'm about to step into a sentry and 3 heroes will instantly kill me. So I wouldn't move right away. I would like sit there, see if they react. They don't react. I just keep watching and I let them move further away before I then start to follow a little bit. And that way, if there is a sentry and they suddenly see me and I see them all turn around, then I have given myself enough distance to then also turn around and hopefully live. But I'm taking a very sneaky angle. And just because I'm invis and I'm like, there's no way they see me, right? I'm not walking into the most obvious path possible. One more example about navigating the map and choosing the right target. When you see someone split pushing a lane, usually the side lanes and specifically core heroes, because they're probably not carrying sentries. I mean, they're barely carrying dust for invis heroes, let alone sentries to places they're pushing. And it's fair. It's not really their job. So when you see a hero like this, like Lifestealer pushing a side lane, that's usually safe to just run in as the Nyx, ignoring the fact that like his teammates are TPing in. If you were just, maybe Lifestealer was low, you're hoping he'll armlet toggle or something, you can get a kill. If you wanted to stand near the Lifestealer, this would probably be a safe bet. Click him first, see if he's carrying detection. And if he's not, it's probably a safe bet because the odds of him having a sentry, unless you think his team has been here beforehand and set it up, this is probably fine. Let's compare that to a team push to actually the same tower, but it doesn't really matter. Any tower, a good team versus an invis hero will place a sentry somewhere in front of the tower, and it should really be like wherever you're standing. If your team is positioning on the right side, then your sentry should be on the right side. If it's like straight down the middle, straight in the middle. If you're from this side, then the sentry's probably somewhere over here. Apply that to any tower. Same with the high ground, somewhere around here is very common. In this tower, somewhere around here would be common, but also because cliffs are nearby, this would not be that strange either. Something over here, or maybe something over here, depending where you think the enemy has set up. So as Nyx comes in, you do not want to just walk up to the Lifestealer. It will work sometimes. I'm not gonna lie. I've seen it work even in my own games where the enemy team does not have sentries. And you know what? If you're really on the ball about clicking the enemy heroes and you're like counting the sentries in the game, they don't have anything, then more power to you. But if you just blindly approach the first guy showing as an invis hero, it will work against the worst opponents and it will not work versus the good opponents. Then you'll be like, force 50%. It's not that. It's not a good play on your end to just walk up in these types of situations. You really should approach from an angle. So Nyx is coming in, he's gonna TP. His team actually dewards this, whether it was safe or not, up for debate. But since it is dewarded, Nyx coming here is fine. And let's pretend this tower is still up and your team wants to fight it and defend it. Because your team came in from this angle and you've now even dewarded, it's okay for Nyx to continue to approach from this angle. Now, a direct approach straight in would be a little risky because we are assuming a sentry somewhere here. But for example, you could cut through this way. What are the odds they sentried here and here and here, right? There's a limited amount of sentries. So right in front of the tower where the Lifestealer is would be the most common case. So you approach the fight from the edges and just scout out what you see. In this case, you'd find a Timbersaw, maybe you find a Legion, and then you tell your team, like, as you go in, I'll cancel her blink so she can't blink duel. You can do something like that, but even as you approach from like a wide angle, again, we want to be careful, imagine where that sentry is, and don't get too close. If you were coming in from the left side because your team came this way, check this cliff, then you would just do the same thing, you'd approach from the left side, but you want to be very careful about directly approaching a group of enemy heroes that should have a sentry down. In this case, because this tower just died, it's too late to defend the tower. Maybe that's a little obvious. But you might still want to fight. So in this case, as an invis hero, rather than run in and force it where there's a sentry, think from the enemy's team perspective. If they want to keep pushing, if they're feeling strong, they probably put their sentry here, and maybe they have a couple other sentries. Maybe they're going to come back to this cliff. Maybe they're getting ready to put the next one here. But where your team is probably does not already have enemy vision. So you can continue to wait somewhere around here as your team maybe backs up a little bit, and you can see if the enemy team pushes in. Or if you want to try to cut them off as they retreat, like, oh, we're happy with our tower, we want to go back, right? Again, don't approach directly through here where the sentry probably is. Go see the retreat paths and take kind of a long route, as long as you can without like completely missing them because you went too long. You were like, woo, all the way around, right? But you go this way and you see as they retreat and you're looking for people splitting up. Maybe a lifestealer kept pushing. He thought he was safe. Maybe you have a ward back here and you see two people going this way to the twin gate. And because you stood here, you see one hero going this way. Then now you have found the enemy has split up. You can choose the best target and act on that. I want to come back to the first clip I showed at the beginning of this video. The real knowledge for those of you that stuck around to the end here. Nyx Assassin, right? You're the Nyx. Well, Zach, you've told me how to identify that all the heroes are here. So now I know I don't go in here, but what can I actually do then as the Nyx Assassin? That's a great question. So first of all, you could just AFK, literally just sit here and watch. Okay, not like here, come over to this side where it's a little safer because you have daytime vision, you can see this far. And if I know they're all in here, that's really inefficient. 5 heroes splitting like 2 camps, and we are across the map farming everything. We're going to be getting a lot more gold than them, even as I'm not doing anything. My 4 heroes are farming stuff. So great, I'm very happy. Maybe I think they're actually smoking. They're getting in here to smoke of deceit, and they're going to go kill someone. So let me go position, let's say like Slark. I care a lot about Slark, my carry. So I might come and sit here as the invis hero. I'm not going to walk into here, this very common observer sentry common place where I die. But guess what? They probably don't have sentries on my half. So I'll just sit here. And if they are 5 smoking to try to find a kill, it's going to pop on an invis hero, me, and maybe I get killed for it, but I'm just a support. I don't care. My Slark gets away. I'm very happy about that. I just wasted 5 heroes' time. Maybe they're not making a smoke and they're just being inefficient. Eventually, someone's going to get bored and split up. So if you have a ward, it might help you see someone like go back to base. Maybe you're watching over here. You see Timber is like, why are we all farming the same camps? I'm going to go farm this top camp. Now you see Timber split away from his team. Maybe you get Timber. Maybe you want to take the 5-on-4 fight now. These are the things you can do as the Nyx Assassin watching this area. You can also try to force objectives somewhere else. So say this top lane, someone pushes in this lane a little bit more, maybe it's already pushing. When your creep wave gets to this tower and starts hitting it, what do you think is going to happen in a pub game? A lot of the time, someone is going to teleport in to try to farm this. So as the Nyx Assassin, you clear through this area, you realize they're all in this bottom section, and instead of walking in here, you actually just tell someone, hey, why don't you push top? And I'll wait here in the tree line, I'll watch this back area, maybe I'll like look for teleports behind the trees over here, and you can see who's coming in. If it's the whole team, 5 people start teleporting behind the tree to the like Slark who's pushing this tower, it's like, whoa, get out of here, buddy, right? You just forced 5 people to rotate in, your carry got farm, your invis, you're scouting this information, that's a success. If it's one support coming in thinking they can safely wave clear into the tier 2, then that could be a kill. That could be the target you finally pick off. Maybe you dive with your teammate, whatever. These are alternatives rather than take this super risky play into the 5 heroes. I see it all the time, guys. It will sometimes work. I'm not going to lie, but it's still a better play to do one of the things I'm talking about instead. Those are the higher level ideas behind playing an invis hero versus just blindly walking in, hoping they have not put down any sentries, that they don't have any gems, that you just get to, with impunity, walk wherever you want just because you're invis. That only works against bad opponents, and you want to be a good player who succeeds versus other good players, so don't do this shit.